So I think we can start. Everyone is here. Hi everyone. Welcome to the session today on strategies for DILR. We have with us Mr. Sanjeev Kumar, who is the founder of Eklavya Learning Resources. And we also have a very special guest today with us, Mr. Abhishek Anand, who is an alumnus of XLRI and is currently working with KPMG as a management consultant. Before that, he has roughly 3 years of experience with Cisco as a network engineer. And hi Abhishek, welcome to the webinar.
Hello
Hi,
Abhishek and
Siddharth.
hi
Thank you so
Siddharth.
much for this opportunity.
All right, so let's start. Sanjeev sir, would you like to start?
Yeah, I just said hello Abhishek and hi Siddharth and hello everybody. As we had discussed in the last video that we'll be going section wise going forward.
I think we're back on. There are some technical problems we were facing. I think we're good to go now.
Yes. So Siddhant and Abhishek, I wanted to know from both of you that of late it is said that arguably DILR is the toughest section, not only in CAT, it is of course the toughest section in CAT as people say, but also in other exams. It is one of the key differentiators in terms of your overall performance. Last 4-5 years. Would you agree to that?
Abhishek, you want to take that?
Yeah, okay. Yes, I do agree that it is one of the toughest sections of these competitive exams. Recently, because of the time constraint, people generally get into that trap of solving every question when it comes to data interpretation, logical reasoning as well. But what I believe is that there is a very strong opportunity also in DILR because it is a level field for both people who are from technical background and also people from other backgrounds as well, because this is where you can there is no special skills you have learned as a part of your technical education or any other competitive exams you have uh, you know uh, been a part of. So I think this is a very good opportunity for people who feel that they're very they have a one step they have a problem with this kind of competitive exams when it comes to people who are in technical education. I think this is a good opportunity also they can capitalize on.
So Siddhant, it is good to hear it from an engineer because we have been talking about the same point.
Correct.
Now you get to hear it from the horse's mouth as well.
Right.
That people from other streams or background do not have any competitive disadvantage in any of these sections or the overall exam.
Right.
So Siddhant, your views on this? Of late, I think because of the type of questions, they are very complex questions. Earlier, I remember when I had taken CAT, they used to give us some bar graph, some line graph, some tables data, and you were supposed to only calculate by how much this has grown or degrown or which is the highest growth or degrowth and those kind of stuff. Now, of late, it is slightly more complex. You have to apply a lot of logic, do a lot of analysis, and then probably reach that stage of probably doing some calculation, something if it is required. I mean, DI, of course, it is required. LR may or may not require the calculations.
Right.
But the questions of late are very, very complex. Do you think that it has become extremely tough? And then to add to that, both of you can, if you can just say that what strategy did you apply and what would you probably suggest to others who are now planning to take CAT or ZAT for that matter?
Right. So when I started preparing for CAT, my first attempt was in 2016. And at that time, I didn't really know a lot about the exam. I was still in college at that time. I was balancing my workload for my final year. So I was just sort of preparing on the side and I wasn't taking any special coaching or classes or whatever. And at that time, all I did was I picked up some books.
We lost your voice, I think.
Is it? Let me check. Hello? Is it better now?
I can hear you, Siddhant. I can hear you.
Yeah, it's better?
Yes, it's there. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So when I started preparing, I just picked up some books on logical reasoning and I solved through those books, which had the kind of questions that you talked about, the bar charts and the pie charts and things like that. But when I actually stepped into the exam, there was not even a single question that, came from that territory. So that was like a big surprise for me. And that was sort of, it also, threw my game off a little bit because I was expecting something else and there was something entirely else on the table. And I think the reason DILR has become so challenging in the recent times is because it has turned into a very high risk, high reward kind of a game. you invest 10 to 15 minutes of your time on one particular set of questions. And if you get it right, you get 4 questions right. But if you get it wrong, you get all 4 of them. So I think more than just knowing how to solve that questions, it also becomes very important that you know which questions to attack. Because a lot of these questions are also very misleading when you look at them the first time. When you look at it, it looks like, okay, fine, this looks pretty simple. This looks like a standard, matrix type question or a very standard seating arrangement question or whatever. But when you actually get down to it, you realize, there's like a layer beneath the first layer of the question, which makes it more complicated. So I think one of the most important strategies that, I used when I was doing my second attempt was understanding that which are the questions which are not even worth touching. Because then you can actually take your time and you can invest it onto the sets which you have a better probability of solving. Because again, as we have talked about this earlier as well, every question is the same number of marks and you don't get extra marks for solving the more difficult questions. As long as you can attack the easy questions and you can get them right, you're still going to get your 3 marks or your 4 marks or whatever that exam might be. So
Okay.
I do agree that, the questions have gotten more challenging. And what's making it more challenging is the fact that, one, you have to know which questions to attack. And B, you need to know exactly how to attack that question. Otherwise, you'll end up, spending 10, 12 minutes and then coming up with nothing. And then you'll just panic and you'll move to the next section and it throws your game off, not just for DILR, but also for quant, which is the section that immediately comes after that DILR section. So I think this is why it's it's become a lot very challenging in the last 5 years or so.
Very correct. Right. In fact, let us first look at the structure as it stands in case of CAT for DILR, and then we will go on to probably discuss with both of you what kind of strategy did you specifically, beyond what Siddhant, what you have already said, anything else that you specifically followed, and what would you advise to others who are planning to take these tests? See, currently we have 32 questions in DILR. Now, supposedly they are distributed equally between DI and LR sections. But I think for a student, he or she has to be indifferent between whether it's a DI problem or a LI problem. The question that the student needs to ask is whether he or she can solve it or they cannot. Simple.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether I have solved this many from DI and this many from LI. Right. So there are 8 problems, each having. What I was saying is that as of now you have 8 problems, each having 4 questions. Supposedly, 4 of these are on DI and the other 4 are on logical reasoning. But to my mind, the student can be indifferent between which is a DI problem, which is a logical reasoning problem. All that he or she should focus on whether he or she can solve that problem or not. And 2 major things that I would want to probably discuss at this stage. DI problems are problems where you are given some data, some graphs, some charts and all, and then ask some questions related to it. So you primarily have to do some calculations, which are not very complex. At most, the mathematical concepts that you need to apply is calculating percentages and ratios and proportions at the most. That is what. But clearly understanding the question is a major part of DI problems also. You need to correctly understand as to what exactly is the graph representing, what unit it is using of measurement, what is the question asking. All those things you have to very clearly understand and then move on to do the simple mathematical calculations that those are involved. Now, on the LR questions, I would typically equate it with a jigsaw puzzle. You are given a problem, too many pieces lying here and there, so many conditions, variables, and you don't know what will come out of that till you start putting one thing at a time and the whole picture emerges. So we will discuss few strategies about this, but I would first want to know from you, Abhishek and Siddhant, what has been your individual strategy and what would you recommend to others, irrespective of what background they come from? Abhishek, you can
take that, Siddhant?
Yeah.
Okay. So firstly, I want to say that in hindsight, when I look back at it now, data interpretation is not something that is just useful for CAT. It is also very important for your management studies if you get into IIMs or XLR, right? So that is one motivation for all of you who are studying it. Please pay attention to it. So coming to the strategy, what I had adopted, um, I just want to add few things to what Siddhant said, because Siddhant was spot on when it comes to what the approach should be. But what extra I did was I paid attention to scores versus percentile graph. So I had an Excel sheet and I had put percentile and every year scores for DI and LR section in every CAT examination. What was the cutoff for each percentile? So this was something which I did to just to understand like what is something which I should be targeting. Number one. Number two, regardless of quants or DILR, I always finalize the set of books which I want to study when it comes to preparation. So how did I think of that? I segregated it into concepts, practice, and testing. So to understand the concepts, these are certain books which I'll be reading to practice, and then testing. Of course, there are also several mock tests that are there. So this is one aspect. And thirdly, when it comes to DILR, I believe that you can segregate all the 32 questions into 3 buckets. First one is easy one, second one is moderate, and third one, which I would like to call time drainers. Right? You should be very mindful of what are your time drainers. So that comes only from the assessment of your mock tests, what you are doing. So I remember I spent a lot more time on assessing my mock tests than giving several mock tests. So I try to understand what are the patterns, what is the pattern of mistakes I am doing when it comes to picking up certain questions. It is not about solving questions, it is about solving questions quickly. So I wanted to understand which is draining my time, what are the patterns of that is happening, and if you analyze 3 to 4 mock tests, you will definitely able to find a pattern of mistakes what you're trying to do, and you should be very mindful of that.
Correct. So I think very clearly two things coming out, which we have also been talking about, Siddhant, that a self-assessment, and secondly taking mocks or sectional tests and then analyzing them and then working on the areas that you need to improve and then moving on, rather than continuously taking one test after another. Your take on your strategy for this section, Siddhant?
I completely agree with what Abhishek said. I agree with the self-assessment part. I agree with whatever he said about knowing which are your time drainers and which are the easy and the moderate questions. One thing that stands out to me about what Abhishek did was the idea of breaking up your preparation into concepts, practice, and then testing, because that is also something that we talk about here at Eklavya, and I think that is very important, because every course material every medium of learning that you pick, it's good at some things and it's not that good at some things. It's the same way with writers. It's the same way with practice material or books that you can pick up off the market and things like that. So it's very important to understand where to get those concepts from, because if you understand that concept, it's half the battle won. And on top of it, the way I see the paper progressing in the last 4 or 5 years, every year there's 1 or 2 new kind of question in the DILR section. Now, out of the 8 sets that there are, these 2 questions are, what I like to call the curveballs. These are questions that have not been seen in the exam in a while, or just haven't been on the exam in a while. And these are the questions which are sort of designed to throw the candidate off. However, there are at least 3 to 4 sets in the DILR section, which are sort of, derived from the questions that appeared on the exam 1 year or 2 years or 3 years earlier. So if you have solved these questions, you get an idea, okay, these are the kind of questions that can be asked. And if you are very clear with how to solve those questions that were featured previously in the exam, it gives you the foundation to build upon how to solve this question. I'm not saying that you can follow the exact algorithm, because it will never be the same question. There will be, one extra idea or, one lesser variable or one more variable that you'll have to work with. But understanding the previous year's questions and how they were solved, it gives you an edge in understanding the derived questions coming out of that particular problem set. So this again, comes from you practicing a lot. This comes from you giving a lot of mocks. This comes from you practicing the previous year's papers. Because then you know exactly, the second you see a question, you'll recall, okay, this is a question, something similar that I've seen before, which gives you confidence, which, sets off the trigger in your head that, okay, this was how this question was attacked. This was how I solved that question. So this should be my sort of, my rough approach towards this question. Whereas something, which is extremely new and which you have never seen before, you can immediately realize that, okay, this is the curveball and I need to, come back to it later if I have more time. I'm not saying that the curveball will always be difficult. Sometimes it's also a lot of easy sets that are given as curveballs. But it's important, if you cannot at the first glance realize if it's an easy question or a difficult question, it's important to keep that aside. Come back to it later on if you have the time. Don't lose out the sure shot marks that you are getting in the hopes of cracking this one set because it looks interesting or whatever. Again, comes back to the same idea. Every question is worth the same number of points.
Yeah, correct. In fact, is it safe? And I have analyzed the CAT papers and XAT papers for all these years, last maybe 20 years or so. And I realized that, of course, as I said, last 4-5 years, the DILR section has been exceptionally tough compared to what it used to be earlier. And I think in today's scenario, I think you have done exceptionally well if you can actually solve 6 of the 8 problems.
Definitely.
So 6 problems into 4 questions would be 24. Even if you have a 90% accuracy, you are at 21, 22, which is a very good score, probably 99 percentile and above.
Easily. Right. I think we're on.
Yeah. So what I was saying was that I think if you can approach 6 of those problems, each having 4 questions, then you have really done very, very well. And out of 24 questions that you are attempting, if you have a 90% or so accuracy, you will get 21 or 22 correct, which is good enough to give you a 99 percentile or thereabout score.
Easily.
So the thing that both of you are recommending, and I would agree with that, is to really identify at the first look which 2 passages you can probably leave aside, or if you have time, you can take up later. So as Siddhant said, probably something that you have not come across while preparing at all, you should keep it for the later stage. And as Abhishek was saying, you start with your own strength areas. You have been practicing, you know what you are strong at, and you start with those. Now, 2 things that I would specifically talk about for DI as well as separately for LR. DI, as we know, is a little more data driven. You are given some data in any form. It could be in any form. So when you're actually asked a question, which is a DI question, you have to very clearly look at what exactly is the graph or the data talking about. It is very obvious thing to say, but a lot of time people in a hurry miss very, very vital clues. So there could be a table. You have to read everything from top to bottom very carefully. What is that table talking about? What are the catches here or there? What are the things that it is talking about? Is there any data which is missing that you have to interpret or probably calculate and then arrive at? So those things. After that, if you have done this part, the rest is the calculation part or the easy part, which anybody can do.
Right.
Now, on the LR questions, we would discuss few types. We don't have the time to discuss all possible kinds, but I know when we talk of LR questions, you normally have word problems or visualization or seating arrangement or tournaments, a lot of other these kind of questions where you are, as I said, it is more like a jigsaw puzzle. The best thing, according to me, to handle these kind of problems would be to start from the given facts or the most definite points. When you're putting a jigsaw puzzle together, which has the picture of an animal, you start with the face or something which is easily identifiable rather than the middle portion, which can fit anywhere. So what is the most obvious fact which is already stated there? You start from there. Then you move on to the other valid conclusions. So as I said, what could be valid conclusions? There can be any examples, but see, when we say, think of a problem where it says that it talks about profession of, say, few cricketers. What are they actually in their real life? So for example, so I'm saying it talks about Sachin being a complete professional cricketer, Rahul Dravid and Kumble being engineers, somebody else being a doctor, and like that. Assume there's a problem like that. Now it says that Sachin is a professional cricketer, and then it says that Sachin, as well as the engineer, did not open the inning for India. So I'm saying, then it gives you one clue. It is not clearly stating who is that engineer, but I'm saying there are given facts, and then there are valid conclusions which you can draw from the things mentioned. So start from the valid given facts and then move on to the valid conclusions which you can definitely draw from the given information. Then you move on to the other conditions, the variables and their relationships, and you start putting everything in an organized manner. Once you do that, you will see what information is missing, and just go one step at a time. Do not expect the whole picture to emerge only when you are reading the question. It will not.
Right.
And of late, I have seen that, Siddhant and hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Abhishek. Yeah.
So, Siddhant and Abhishek, the point I am making now is, of late, since I said the questions are tougher, in fact, even if you have considered all given facts and information, the complete picture may still not emerge, because some of the information could be there in the questions. So now then, when you go to the questions and then you just see what is mentioned there and then you apply that part, then the picture probably becomes complete.
Right.
And with the help of probably one question or answer to one question, then you can solve some other questions.
Correct.
So you do not expect or do not think that the whole picture will emerge when you're reading or trying to solve it. Just go one step at a time. As I said, start with the given facts, then go to the valid conclusions, which you can definitely draw from the given information. And that whole information has to be put in an organized manner. Once you start going step to step, you will know what kind of problems you can easily solve and how much time it is taking you to solve. So as I said, 5 to 6 passages would be good enough, depending on how tough or easy that exam is in that year. And typically, Abhishek, you spoke about everybody, irrespective of their background, having equal advantage or disadvantage in this particular section.
Right.
So in this section, the DI problems are such that you don't need too much of mathematical calculations.
Correct.
From your experience of being an engineer, do you find that the other problems, the logical reasoning problems, are probably tougher, or you would say that both are DI and LR questions are more or less equally difficult or easy for everybody?
Yeah, so personally, I always believe that DI is something which I would bank on more than logical reasoning questions. There are 2-3 reasons for that. One being, this is also an important input for everybody seeing this, that please keep aside your assumptions. Please keep aside, because there will be questions where they say Sachin might have got more wickets than McGrath. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, can you hear it?
Hello?
Yeah, it's back now.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, firstly, please keep your assumptions aside, because there might be questions where the answer for it might be Sachin might have gotten more wickets than McGrath. Right, but which is not true in the real world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that is something which we should be extremely mindful of. For that, I believe we should be very present in the exam. Right. Please don't get distracted by the names what are given, the variables that are given to you.
Correct.
Number one.
Because at times those could be deliberately given.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They are the traps which are laid out for us. So those are the mines that we are not supposed to be stepping on. Secondly, there are 32 questions, and if we look at it, we can say that roughly we get around 2 minutes per question to attempt. But since these are questions which comes in sets, we can say that we have around 8 minutes per set because of 4 questions per set, right? So data interpretation, I believe we can actually take it on like 2 minutes or 1.5 minutes per question, but logical reasoning requires a good 5 amounts for solving the puzzle.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
attempting the 4 questions, so sometimes it could be a hit and miss. So if you miss it, you miss all the 4 questions,
Right.
so that is why I always preferred solving data interpretation with more interest and keenly to get it spot on, and then move to logical reasoning. So I believe data interpretation was a little bit easier compared to logical reasoning.
Right. And I
Okay,
think there's
okay.
also this new trend in the exam over the last few years, is that even in data reasoning, there are elements of logical reasoning, even in the data.
Correct. Absolutely.
Because now there are questions of, let's say, data sufficiency, or maybe, you know, they would have things where you actually have to make some, you know, conclusions based on the information.
Very correct. Very correct. That is what I was saying, that you cannot directly just apply mathematical formulas to
Correct,
and then
yes.
solve them.
Right.
You have to first think a lot
Correct.
about what that particular data is talking about, then probably
Right.
make a lot of inference and then think about a lot of things, and then probably, yes, very correct. Siddhant.
And one more very important mind in the logical reasoning area is the option of cannot be determined. Because if you have spent 5 to 6 minutes on that set and you don't come up with an answer and you see cannot be determined, your first instinct is, okay, fine, this is the correct option. But with logical reasoning, there's always the chance that maybe you missed out that one sentence, or maybe, you know, there was one conclusion that you had to make that you missed out on. So that becomes a
Correct.
very, you know, it becomes very tricky to actually, you know, bubble in the cannot be determined with complete.
Correct. In fact, that is why I was talking about just going one step at a time,
Correct.
rather than getting overwhelmed with every information which is
Right.
there.
Right.
Pick one information, see whether it helps you move one step ahead or not. If not, keep it aside for the timing. Subsequently, you will probably use it. I mean, not
Right.
probably, in fact, you will use it.
Right.
But take one step at a time. Both of you have been stressing on the fact that if you cannot get one passage right or one problem right, you will mess up all the answers, you know. But one important thing that I want to discuss here is, suppose I am able to attempt 5 problems. So across 5 problems, I have answered now 20 questions. I could be having all of them right, or probably 1 or 2 wrong. So I am at about 17, 18, but I have some time left and I desperately want to take it to 21 or 22 kind of right answers. And I know that probably I do not have enough time to go through that entire passage, because it will take another 10 minutes for me to read, understand, interpret, and then go to the questions. Is it actually possible for me, or anybody for that matter, to probably pick 1 or 2 questions out of each of these 3 problems, or it is like completely ruled out? As we, for example, let me clarify, as in case of reading comprehension, we say that it is still possible. Even if you have not read the entire passage, you can still look at 1 or 2 questions and make some sense by glancing through the passage.
Right.
Even if you're running short of time. Is it possible to do so in DILR? What is your view on this?
Abhishek, you want to go first?
Yeah, so that's right. When it comes to reading comprehension, we can give it a shot. Logical reasoning, definitely not. It is very difficult to give that attempt. Data interpretation depends
Probably,
upon
yes.
the difficulty of it. Yeah. So I would rather go back and check the answers for their validity than giving shot at 1 or 2 extra questions, because
no. But Abhishek, my point is,
I'll increase the probability of that. Yeah.
But my point here is, Abhishek, that even if I've got all right, I'm still below 99 percentile, and I desperately want to cross that threshold, and I have time.
Right.
So in that case, is it worthwhile? Because of course there are negative marks in CAT. So is it worthwhile to probably have a look at 3 of the remaining passages which I have not been able to solve, and probably pick 3-4 questions out of the 12 latter? Is it possible in a logical reasoning or DI problem?
DI problem, yes, I think the probability is a little bit higher, but logical reasoning is something which
very difficult to do.
is a very difficult thing. Yes.
I will agree. Yes.
Also,
Siddhant?
it's also a function of the current structure of the paper. If you had asked me this
Hmm.
5 or 7 years ago, I would have said that yes, it's definitely possible in DI. Because DI used to have a lot of these questions which were directly lifted up from the question. For example, there was a graph, they'd ask you what percentage increases in this. So I don't need the context to that entire passage over there. I just need that one
Correct.
graph and the information there, and I can calculate that. However, in the last 3 or 4 years, all of these questions have become increasingly interlinked to the point where every subsequent question assumes that you have solved the previous question. Where your questions
Correct.
are like, if basis the previous question, what is the answer to this? Basis the previous question, what is the answer to this? In that case, it becomes not the fact that you don't have to just solve the questions, you also have to solve them in that order. Otherwise, you won't be able to get this. So I think that is why I think we have lost him again. It's probably because of the cyclone, I think. Just give us a second, guys. All right, guys. So we are back on.
Yeah. So Siddhant and Abhishek, I think both of you are saying that considering the current pattern of the questions, it is difficult to actually pick up few questions because these are all related questions. The 4 questions after one particular problem or passage. So I think the better thing to do in such a case is to probably try and increase your speed so that you are not stuck at 4 or 5 passages.
Right.
You are able to at least approach 5 or 6 passages in the given time.
Correct.
So unlike comprehension, you cannot really just pick 1 or 2 questions which are there after a particular problem and then try and answer them and get some of them right. It's very, very difficult to do so in LR particularly. DI probably it may still click, but not worth taking the risk. It's better to probably concentrate on increasing one's speed.
Right.
Good. So some very, very important and great ideas here. Thank you, guys. Any last words that you would want to add, each one of you, Abhishek and Siddhant, for A, specifically about the DI and LR section, and B, overall, anything that you would want to advise or suggest to anybody who is planning to appear for CAT, XAT, and all these exams in 2021?
But with respect to DILR, I would like to say practice is the most important thing, because you like I said, this is a level playing field for all the candidates. So the more you practice, the better you will be able to score, the better you will be able to familiarize with the kind of questions you will choose to attempt in the examination. Number one. With respect to the overall strategy of it, I think it was discussed in the previous videos as well. I don't have much, but I have only few points to add. One particular thing, this was actually taught to us in XLRI. This technique is called Pomodoro. So if you want to use it, please check it out. It's a very scientific method of studying 25 minutes, taking a break of 5 minutes. It will help you channelize your inner energy better towards your preparation. Thirdly, I used to solve logical reasoning questions as cushioning from quants. Like I used to solve quants for like 1 hour, and I used to solve 1 or 2 puzzles just to take a break from my preparation. So that is something you can actually try when it comes to logical reasoning as well. And try to understand what is noise and what is information when you involve in these platforms where there are so much about discussion about CAT preparation and CAT questions. Do you know this answer? Do you know that answer? Comment A, B, C. So try to understand, don't panic, try to understand what is information and what is chaos or noise. So this is something which is very important when it comes to your preparation.
Okay.
Very, 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 very important point. Very important point, Abhishek. Yeah, Siddhant, your last words.
I think Abhishek has covered everything pretty well. I completely agree with everything he said that about information and noise, because you can solve n number of questions, but then there's always that decreasing marginal utility. Your first 10 questions are going to help you much more than your next 10 questions, and so on and so forth. So it's better to solve 20 questions, get competent at it, and move to the next topic instead of solving 100 questions, because you can get those questions. I understand it's very easy because getting questions is a very nice, comfortable feeling. So you might be, tempted to skip out on the areas where you can't get those questions immediately, and keep on focusing on the topics you're good at. It's a critical mistake that you must avoid. No matter what happens, the second you are competent with a topic, don't forget it. Keep practicing it, but then also focus on the other areas. And that also applies to DILR. In DILR, just like any other section, there will be problem types that you're good at and problem types that you struggle with. For example, I was decent with the matrix type, 5 people, 5 jobs, 5 cars, 5 houses, that sort of stuff. So I was decent at that. But the tournament parts, I was very bad at it. So when I was preparing, I made a conscious effort that for every matrix type or that I solved, I tried to solve 2 or 3 of those tournament questions. Because I knew that the matrix type, no matter what the paper throws at me, I'll be able to manage. I could not guarantee that about the tournament. And that is something very key that you need to remember when you're preparing. And that obviously comes with self-awareness. You need to know what you're good at and where you need help. And once you have that and once you're preparing on the basis of that, I think you should be fine. Because as Abhishek rightly pointed out, and as even you have been talking about, DILR is a level playing field. Everyone starts at the same level. If in quant, you could make the case that an English graduate would have an advantage over someone who doesn't have a background in literature or whatever. In DILR, you could not make any such case at all, because the skills that are required there, they're not taught in any curriculum, they're not a part of any course. So everyone's starting at the same level. And no matter where you think you are on that spectrum right now, you can always get better. All it needs is practice, consistently, sincerely, and honestly with yourself.
Great. So we come to the end of this. We'll continue to try and bring more value to all the CAT and XAT aspirants. In fact, the aspirants of other competitive exams as well. If your objective is to get into one of the top 10 or 20 colleges, you can surely look forward to the videos that we bring. We will try and bring more value to all of you. Thank you, Abhishek, so much for taking out time. We expect to probably have you another time soon when you can find some time out and add value to at least
Definitely.
the preparation of the aspirants. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Siddhant. And thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah. All right. So as always,
Thank you so much.
This video will be up on the website and on our YouTube channel. So feel free to go and check it out. If you think you know someone who might be helped by this, feel free to share it with them. And you can go
also on our Facebook page.
Yes, on our Facebook page. And our website has the resources that we talked about in the last video. So you can go and check that out as well. And I hope that you guys like the video, and we'll see you most probably next week again.